Hi, I'm Dennis Wilson. At Delta Dental of New Jersey, we're committed to educating the public about the importance of good oral health and its role in our overall health and well-being. That's why we're proud to support the important healthcare programming produced by the CAUCUS Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Teaching our teachers next on CAUCUS New Jersey.
Funding for this edition of CAUCUS New Jersey has been provided by the PNC Foundation, the New Jersey Education Association, JFK Medical Center, Delta Dental of New Jersey, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, and by Verizon. Promotional support provided by NJ.com, Small News, Big News, True Jersey, and by New Jersey Family Magazine and NJFamily.com.
Welcome to CAUCUS New Jersey. I'm Steve Adubato. You know, in order to have quality classrooms, we need, obviously, highly qualified teachers. Here to discuss the need for effective teacher training and the importance of classroom preparation, we have Dr. Jeanette Betancourt back again with us. She is the Senior Vice President. You have a new title of U.S. Social Impact at Sesame Workshop, founded in 1969. Dr. Jennifer Robinson, Executive Director at the Center of Pedagogy at Montclair State University, my alma mater. Michele Russo, President and CEO of Young Audiences. And finally, Anthony Bisulca, who is the Director of Teacher Programs at the Great Liberty Science Center. You're going to be seeing websites throughout this program that provide valuable information about how we prepare our teachers to teach our children. So let me ask you, Jeanette, we've had a whole range of conversations about this. Mm-hmm. Why is the teaching of teachers to be great teachers, the training, so critically important?
It's the base. We know teachers are really setting the foundation of learning for all children at all grade levels, so that the more that they're trained, the more that they know how to diversify their teaching and also adapt it to individual children's needs, the more successful they are in their teaching, but also on the impact they have on their students.
So people say things like, Doctor, well, you know, she was born to be a teacher. He was a born teacher. But it's not enough.
That's not enough, exactly. There are certain strategies. There's a lot to learn about how children learn and how people learn, how they develop over time that individuals have to know in order to actually be quality teacher. And so it's not enough to just say, well, you know, I know how to teach because I've been sitting in a classroom or I sat in classrooms most of my life. You really do have to go to a preparation program that's going to help you understand what individuals need in order to be great teachers.
You know, what I'm always fascinated by is the fact that even though I've never taught with little or younger kids, and it's challenging trying to teach our own children who often do not listen. I ask myself, because I've taught on the higher ed level, I've often thought that managing a classroom, just managing, facilitating the classroom is critically important. It is a skill in and of itself. Am I making too much of that?
No, it's,
talk about that.
I mean, it's absolutely a talent and a skill to be developed. And I think...
What is the skill?
The skill is juggling. You know, it's really, it's so rare that in a classroom every child is doing the same thing. You're really working on children who are engaging in activities in different ways. And so the teacher has to have the eye on everything, has to have the eye on the big picture and understand the needs of each child in the room. And, you know, one of the things that we do at Young Audiences with bringing artists into schools to train teachers is looking at how each child is reached through that learning experience. And so what one child is doing is not the same as what another child is doing, but they are reaching the same learning goals.
By the way, I want to make sure, I was unfair to teach one of you. I want to make sure that I give you a chance right now to explain exactly what your organization does, Young Audiences does?
We bring artists into schools to train teachers, to work with students, and to improve the learning environment.
And the Liberty Science Center?
Well, in my role, we do professional development for teachers, New York, New Jersey, we've gone to Connecticut, Pennsylvania. So we take a lot of our things on the road. And
But the Liberty Science Center is...
Well, we're the largest museum in New Jersey, 650,000 visitors annually.
650,000?
Yeah, comprised of students, teachers, families. So we're really excited about that. We also reach students by going into schools. So aside from teacher PD, we go into assembly programs, workshops.
PD, professional development.
Correct, teacher professional development. So we reach audiences in many different ways.
Come back to you. Jeanette, just if people don't know what the Sesame Workshop is, let them know.
It's the nonprofit organization that produces Sesame Street, and its mission is to help children grow, become smarter, stronger, and kinder. Our area, or the area I oversee, is all the philanthropic work that we do where we create specific resources for educators, service providers that use media, and Sesame Street is a tool to really engage young children more.
And the work up at Montclair State.
Sure. The Center of Pedagogy really brings together all of the major players in teacher preparation. That is the faculty in the arts and sciences in all the majors, the faculty in the College of Education and Human Services, and the faculty in the schools. And we do everything from recruitment to admissions to advising to retaining those students to sending them out into the schools for clinical experiences and clinical practicum.
Okay. It's one thing to talk about managing the classroom, but the other skill that I've often thought about, because I'm obsessed with the word engagement or engaging, the keys to engaging students is interesting because each student is not engaged by the same thing. Teaching teachers to engage students as opposed to lecturing to students. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think, you know, the first step for students being engaged is the teacher being engaged in what they're teaching and how they're teaching. And so, you know, I think everyone here would agree that each teacher is passionate about what they're teaching, interested in what they're teaching, and interested in how they're teaching. You have to start with that for the children to be engaged.
Okay, stay on that for a second. You said each one of us will agree that that a teacher is or should be? Should be. Okay, so let's just stop right there. If a teacher, or if someone has gone into teaching because, quote, they think, it's not that tough a job, you don't have to work a full year, and, you know, the benefits are good, we're in trouble.
We are in trouble. I don't think
Those
that,
kids are in trouble.
honestly, especially in this climate right now, I think the numbers of people who are moving towards teaching for those reasons, that number is going down. I have to imagine. I don't have any science behind it, but I have to imagine.
But just anecdotally, we would know that those who go into teaching understand this is a very challenging job, and that you may think it's not a full year, but you are working many hours when you are not in that classroom, and teachers are underpaid. Basically, that's it.
Absolutely. And so the motivators that they have, and my sister is a teacher, so I can speak a lot about this, and we've worked with hundreds of teachers, probably maybe thousands by this point. But what we do the best is really engage the creativity of the teacher, the imagination of the teacher, and the passion of the teacher when we bring an artist in, so that teacher is plugged into the content, they're plugged into the art form that they're working in, they've got an artist with them to help them, and that is what will bring about the engagement of the children, because there's a way that they will be responding to the children in a way that is it's built into the arts process, and it also reflects their conversations with the artist. There's a lot of support there, so they're not just sort of like told to do something and you figure it out. And I think that what we've heard, and it will sound completely hyperbolic, but it's totally true, that we hear probably once a month that there's a student that has participated in one of our programs that never spoke before, never worked with their friends very well, always was, had behavior problems, whatever the case may be, who is now engaged. So when there's an arts program happening.
So teaching teachers to engage their students, talk about the science part of that, or what the Liberty Science Center does to help teachers.
It used to be that engagement was just looked upon as a lab. So a lab, because it's a lab, will be more engaging than a chapter in a textbook. What we've really come to realize is that that lab is only as good as the pedagogical and cognitive structure around it. So with the next generation science standards, the idea is that we want to make sure the
Hold on,
kids...
you said that quickly. The next generation
Yes.
science standards. Go ahead.
So with the new standards coming on board, the idea is just doing a lab is not engagement enough.
And is the state putting forth these new standards?
Well, it's a national movement.
Go ahead.
But that was driven by states collaborating together.
Okay.
So as of right now, 26 states have adopted it across the country. So it is a state by state, either opt in or opt out.
So what does it have to do with engagement?
What it has to do with it is the idea of, I guess, how you define engagement. So it used to be enough, for example, even elementary school teachers, right? When the principal came to do an observation, let's make a volcano today. Because that really,
Right.
ooh, wow, the kids are wowing, oohing. But
They're
then
engaged.
Right, they're engaged. However, that doesn't get to what's going on cognitively. So their hands may be moving, there may be nice things being said, but with the next generation of science standards, we're talking now about, are they engaged in science practices? Are they actually getting the cross-cutting concepts that tie biology to chemistry to physics, as opposed to what used to be thought of as discrete labs, that each lab will engage in a concept. The next generation of science standards says that all these concepts are linked together.
It's more complex. Engagement, teaching teachers to engage students.
For us, engagement is a little bit different. It is not only to engage students, but to understand, and particularly in early childhood, it's the idea, how do you build on children's natural curiosity, particularly around science and math. They're inquisitive, that's nature. So that engagement is, how do we leverage that and make that exciting throughout the day, no matter what we're doing, everything from eating to actually outdoor play to a science activity. But also engagement for us is, how do you extend that into the home? So when we're talking about teacher preparation, it's also the engagement of not only the child, but also how you extend that into the home, what happens in the classroom.
Interesting. Before we go to the break, I'm going to ask you, Dr. Pedagogy, teaching, the art of teaching, the science of teaching, to what degree is engagement really the art of facilitation?
I think that's part of it. I think everything that everyone has said, pretty much what I would consider engagement, but I think it's also building relationship with those students and understanding what their background is, knowing a little bit about their home life, about their culture, about the community that they come from, so that when you have a subject, when you have content, you're actually relating that to what the children are experiencing every day. So that's another aspect of engagement as well. And certainly facilitation, getting students to interact with each other, because we don't learn in isolation, we learn in community. And that's what we would want to have happen in a classroom.
Tell you what, when we come back, let's continue the conversation about teaching our teachers and talk about diversity, right? As we continue our conversation about the importance of training the teachers of today and the teachers of tomorrow, right after this.
To see more CAUCUS New Jersey with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are talking about teaching the teachers, teacher training, if you will. Doctor, let me ask you this. We talked about this in an individual segment you and I had. I'm curious about this. I want you to share with everyone watching the importance of teaching teachers who have had little or no experience, who are going into an urban area, who are interacting with young people, with students who they've never interacted with before, how to prepare to do that.
Right.
Say you're at Montclair State, you're teaching kids teachers how to go into Newark. They may have never interacted with students from an urban area, correct?
That's true.
Talk about it. How do you prepare them?
Well, I think you talk a little bit about the community. You begin to acquaint students with the community that they're going to go into. And at Montclair, we actually bring the whole class to a school, and we cultivate relationships with different schools. And generally in those schools, they're helping us to teach as well. We call that the simultaneous renewal of the schools and teacher preparation. So our schools help us as well. Our teachers are welcoming, and then the students perhaps will go into a classroom and they'll do some observation of teachers who are teaching in that classroom. And they begin to value and see that the students there have assets that they can build on, and they're watching teachers in their classrooms who are building on those assets. We may do a tour of a community, of a neighborhood. We may do activities with community-based organizations that also help to lift the assets of the children in that community, the families in that community. In some of our programs, we actually have our students perform service learning. So they're actually learning and giving to that school even as they're learning about the children in that school.
Oh, that is important to be a better teacher.
Yes.
My gosh.
And when you're embedded in a school, when you are learning alongside your classmates, your peers, as well as letting the children in that school, opening yourself up to letting the children teach you as well about their lives.
Makes you a better teacher?
Absolutely.
Can we expand the discussion on diversity? How else do we teach teachers to deal with diverse groups of students? How else do we do it? Jump in.
I think the idea that was brought out is understanding the diversity of home life and environments and communities.
For example?
For example, in terms of any city, urban setting versus a rural setting, really understanding the context of that community and what that means. I think children or any student represents their community. And what you find is that when you are connected to understand that community as an educator, you're becoming part of that community.
So devil's
it's
advocate.
no longer just school.
Sorry for interrupting, Doctor. So someone says, wait a minute. A good teacher is a good teacher. He or she can teach anywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. You could put that kid in the most rural or suburban part of the state or the most urban. It doesn't matter. They know their subject matter. That's it. They go teach. You're shaking your head?
No.
No.
No, it's not the case. I mean, you have to. I think we've come a long way, both in research and practice, in the idea that you're treating the whole person. You're teaching the whole person. You're not just.
You're not teaching a subject?
No, you're not teaching a subject. You're teaching learners. And I think on another panel said very well before that, I think most adults, if you said, I'm going to put you in a room with 37th graders and you're going to teach them all, I think most of them would run for the hills because recognition is that you can have the best lesson plan prepared, you can have the content under your belt.
You're organized.
Organized, yes, but even in the best organization possible that you can prepare for, there's going to be different things those learners bring to the classroom every day that may be a cultural, may be family background, and as a teacher, if you don't care about the whole person, you will not be the most effective teacher.
And how important is it for teachers to understand what may be going on at home for some of these kids?
It's really important. I mean, if a child is consistently tired and falling asleep, or maybe they just look bored or something like that, like to know that there's something happening at home where they're just not getting sleep, or they're staying at someone else's house because there's something happening at home.
Excuse me for interrupting, is that a teacher's job to understand that?
Yeah.
And do what?
And make accommodations for that child as best as they can, and have, it's not only the teacher. I do think the school community has a responsibility for all the families. So, what we've seen in some schools that are, that work really well with families is the family liaison or the family coordinator is aware of all those issues, so they can be that connection between the families and the children to help the teachers understand, sort of what's happening, so they can, because like, I forget who said it, I think we've all kind of said it in one way or the other, but the relationship between the teacher and the child, all the learning is happening in that relationship. So if there's not an understanding and a respect and just a connection there, it really doesn't matter who you put in front of the kids.
You want to jump back in?
Yeah, I would say it's something else that was brought up, that it's based on a strength-based model. looking at students really in all the positive that they bring, no matter what community that they're in. And it's back to what we were saying before. The school is part of a community. So it's not just a burden on the teacher, it's the school environment. It's set up by the administration, the overseers, and the school now where it really works well is where they're part of that entire community.
Let me ask you this. The idea of continual learning. I've often thought about this. Because I do a fair amount of coaching and leadership development in different corporate and nonprofit environments, I've come across people in areas of communication, presentation skills. I've actually come across people who are 40, 50 years old, whatever, older, who say things to me like, I don't need to learn anything else because not that I know everything, but I am who I am, this is it. I don't know why my company or my organization wants me to do this. And I think, that's not a good sign. Because the concept of continual learning is critical to any leader. Absolutely. But I also, anecdotally I'm thinking, has to be important to every teacher. So where does the part about continual learning for teachers come in, and how do you fit into that?
Right, sure. Well, we talk about the Center of Pedagogy. One of the things that we have as one of the mechanisms is that we actually have a school-university partnership. So we're in partnership with 30 school districts. And so while those school districts accept our students for clinical experiences and practica, we also provide professional development for those teachers. Those teachers learn together in study groups. They do action research together. They propose new ways of learning. They're in mini courses together. So there are teachers who are signing up on a daily basis so that they can continuously learn not only from the experts, but from each other as teachers. Because there's so much that teachers have to offer each other, and very often there's not time, perhaps during the school day, for them to go into each other's classrooms and learn. But when you get a group of teachers together, they are hungry to learn together and to grow and to do better work for their students.
Professional development on your end as well.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the work we do is with teachers in the classroom already. So these are teachers who are certified, who have passed all their examinations and are teaching, and they may be 20-year veterans, they may be only a couple years in the classroom. But as the doctor was just saying, it's very true. When we see them come to our workshops, they're hungry to learn more. And I'll be quite honest, there's next generation science standards are not being embraced by every teacher everywhere. There is a little bit of resistance to it. However, this professional development and ongoing learning is so crucial, because when you get teachers in there who are passionate for it, and teachers maybe who have a ways to go to get passionate about it, they learn from each other.
Let me ask you this. How much of what it takes to be a great teacher isn't manifested itself in public? What I mean by that, so I'm fascinated by the art of facilitation, the art of asking questions, the art of engaging in people's body languages as presenters, teachers, however you want to describe this, to pull people in. But then I ask myself, wait a minute, how much of what a great teacher does is not seen because it's not manifested in public? It's the preparation. It's the lesson plan, it's the thinking through, it's the understanding who your students are, right? No?
Yeah, and it's the observation in the moment of how did that just work, and the micro adjustments that teacher make. Yeah, and and the reflection. A good teacher does a lot of reflection on what just happened, and if they have a great learning community, that's even better, or someone to work with. And when we work with teachers and work with them in integrating the arts, we're giving them these other tools that they can use. So we may work with a 20-year veteran who's been teaching, language arts to second graders for years, and suddenly they're learning about theater concepts and how theater concepts stick with, literacy concepts. I mean, it's pretty obvious to the world, it's pretty obvious when you think about it, but not everybody knows about theater or about how to use theater in the school. And suddenly it's like they've got new tools, they've got new ways to engage with students in reading, they've got new ways for kids to understand characters and plot, and just if you get the kids up on and moving around thinking about the story rather than just reading, suddenly now this teacher is engaged. Talk about engagement. They're engaged, the kids are engaged, and suddenly the classroom is just transformed.
What's it like to see that in a teacher? What's it like to see in a teacher either that passion or the reigniting of that passion?
They see it in themselves. So I think we often don't see that in teachers or advocate in that way for teachers. Most teachers are bringing that passion, those variety of skills that we just described, and keeping in mind large number of kids in one setting, in one classroom. So I think we need to really recognize that the teaching profession has multiple skills, and the individuals that are in there are bringing those multiple skills, and we need to support that.
A few seconds left. Teachers are exceptional people, aren't they? We don't give them enough credit.
Yeah.
We don't recognize them enough. By the way, for those who know our work at the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, you know that we have Teacher Appreciation Week. We're constantly working with the folks at the New Jersey Education Association to celebrate our public school teachers. And I want to thank all of you for being a part of our ongoing effort to recognize the greatness of our teachers and what it takes to be a great teacher. Thank you so much.
The preceding program has been a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of CAUCUS New Jersey has been provided by the PNC Foundation, the New Jersey Education Association, JFK Medical Center, Delta Dental of New Jersey, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, and by Verizon. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. CAUCUS New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
When you work in a public school, you're a part of the community. So when Superstorm Sandy hit, the school employees jumped right in to help. The middle school here served as a refuge for people who were forced from their homes. We all pitched in to help. Custodians, cafeteria workers, teacher aides, mechanics, groundskeepers, all pitching in to help out. School employees are part of a team, whether it's to help educate our children or to recover from a terrible tragedy. That's why I'm so proud to be a member of the NJEA.